shows, sort of philosophical, cosmological speculations of what it might really be if you could see that far, if you weren't encumbered by the speed of light. And at the same time, going in the other direction, it probes into quantum mechanics. So it goes past what we know about the atom, what we speculate about the constituents of the atom, what string theorists speculate about it. And I just use string theory because it's the, favorite theory right now of what explains all the subatomic particles. They're just different vibrating, different pieces of string vibrating at the same time. And
Yes.
so those are the ultimate constituents of matter. And my view is that that's just today's point of view. And even if we show string theory to proven to be true, then at some point somebody's going to say, hey, well, what are those strings made of? And, maybe we'll be able to have a fast enough accelerator that can probe the depths of string theory.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go a little further and, keep on peering deeper and deeper past string theory, and let's take a look at what it looks like down at the quantum level, at the Planck length. And, so basically with all of today's speculation in mind, both at the quantum level and at the cosmological level, I try to put that all into one big powers of 10 simulation application that you can run on the website. In addition to that, I allow places where you can jump into a parallel reality, which is another concept that you've explored on your show, that a lot of people have talked about, that there could be parallel worlds out there.
Yes.
It's a quantum mechanical idea, it's a cosmological idea also, and it's a interdimensional idea. So there's three different ways that that people have come at this angle. But let's imagine that it's true and that there is a way to jump to another reality. I allow reality jumps between different powers of 10 simulations. One of them jumps to a programmed reality, which is very similar to the sort of traditional view of physics and cosmology, except when it gets down to the deep levels, it's going to show that everything's just created from information. And maybe when it gets further out, it doesn't need to go as far out because we can't perceive anything further out anyway. And then I jump to another sort of more fun and speculative approach that has a couple surprises in it. So in my opinion, the powers of 10 that's on the Universe Solved is a real fun one to explore, and I encourage any of your listeners to do that. And feel free to write me with suggestions and pass along the link to your friends.
Absolutely. No, it's great fun to follow up on something. I don't want to give anything away. I should just say that people should definitely check out that and jump forward and backward in some of these the parallel realities, as it were. But what do you think about, again, if we're talking about maybe things like fringe science? There was recently an idea about teleportation, for instance. There was a news story on New Scientist, I think it was, that allegedly came a little bit closer now to some kind of teleportation. They did an experiment that were able to send basically a string of numbers, whatever, some kind of small information bit, as it were, about a yard or something like that. But that still kind of, I guess, is incorporated into the whole quantum physics, quantum mechanics type of idea, that this isn't really fringe science. We just need to learn to harness the quantum world, or understand the quantum world better in order to utilize it. Because as you said previously, Jim, you talk about this idea that locality is something that isn't what we perceived, or possibly what we perceived it to be, meaning that we can possibly invent teleportation machines, or we can invent something that has to do with I don't know if we want to go so far as time travel. Of course, that's a little bit of a different thing, but things like teleportation, if we take that, do you think that is something that is possible within the framework of what we can see reality is right now?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And teleportation is a great example, because we are pushing the limits of it. It was something, with the Star Trek teleporter was always purely in the realm of science fiction until quantum physicists were started teleporting particles under the Danube River. And, to be a little more precise, what they're teleporting is information about the particle. So they're not really sending a particle.
Okay.
They're sending information about the particle. But then if you think, well, what is a particle but information anyway, then maybe they really are sending that particle. So when you talk about macroscopic devices or macroscopic objects, this is something that's going to follow Moore's law again. So the ability to teleport the information about an atom was yesterday's limitations of teleportation. Today's it's molecules, and tomorrow it's going to be, macroscopic devices. Something created from a large number of molecules, a billionth of a gram of material, and then some time after that it'll be a millionth of a gram, and then pretty soon it will be a mouse or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then the question becomes, what are you really teleporting? One of the things that has been, a big question in science fiction is, when we get to the point where we can teleport things, will we be able to teleport our bodies? Yes, if you believe that you can recreate at the distant receiver of the teleportation, you can completely recreate your body.
Yes.
That seems to be something that is certainly possible, because all the information that's needed to reconstruct your body can be sent through this teleportation channel. So if that happens and you reconstruct your body, where does your mind go? Does your mind stay in the original place, or does it move over to the new place?
Right.
For people who believe that we have a soul, or we have a spirit that is not embedded in our brain, they would tend to believe that, hey, that new body that just got created by the molecular compiler and the other end of the teleportation device, that's a robot. That is not me.
Yeah.
I'm never going to pass through that channel. However, if you think about this from the programmed reality standpoint, we are in control of the body that we're in. And perhaps we decide, hey, I'm going to jump from the source teleportation port to the destination teleportation port, and I will allow my consciousness to go from one body to the other.
Mm.
If that can be done, and my prediction is, if we are in a programmed reality, that is theoretically possible. It wouldn't be theoretically possible if we're not in a programmed reality, and and we have a soul. But again, it would be possible if we're not in a programmed reality and we have no soul, and all we are is a construct of the complexity of our brain. So it's a really interesting thing to think about, and my view is that we will be able to teleport at some point, and we will be able to move our consciousness from one entity to another.
Mm.
Part of the reason I think that this is true is I just feel from the standpoint of trying to understand what life is all about. What is it?
Yes.
What does it mean for something to be alive? I think it's very curious that people die and can't be resuscitated. Why is that? Why would it be if all that's making our bodily processes go is a flow of blood and a beating heart and and all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't that be reversed at some point, say within 15 minutes of dying? An artificial heart or a stimulation of a heart just generates the blood flow, and boom, the person's back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the answer to that has traditionally been your brain cells have died, so it's impossible for you to sustain that. But that doesn't mean that that you couldn't re-infuse life into somebody with damaged brain cells. And it also flies in the face of some recent research that shows that brain cells much longer than the time frame that is typically thought to be the time frame beyond which you can't resuscitate somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So taking all this into account, there's a very curious aspect of life, which seems to be that when it's over, independent of whether or not the body can sustain life thereafter, which tells me that there's something else beyond, the soul in the machine. There's something else out there. Part of the reason why I believe that, I believe in the soul. I believe that there's we are effectively avatars, driven by our consciousness, that our consciousness is probably elsewhere, and that therefore, when it becomes possible to teleport humans, it should be possible to jump into that human's body.
That's interesting. It's because there is this idea that basically the as you said before, that the mind is something that is external to the brain, and this idea that if the brain were to be, together with the whole body, of course, teleported to somewhere else, that the brain generates basically a electromagnetic field, if you will, and it's this field that's kind of is the connecting force, I don't know what to call it, to your mind or to your soul, even in that sense, meaning that wherever in the in space that this particular electromagnetic field occurs or happens to be, that's where the soul will be connected to, meaning the same idea again, that we have this idea of non-locality. It doesn't matter where it end up being, because it really isn't about distance in that sense. We're in this space and we can move wherever we want to move, basically, and we will be whole wherever we pop up, or I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but it seems to resonate with me, at least in the idea of the holographic universe again, that space and time in that sense doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I completely agree with that point of view, and I think that there's a lot of anecdotal evidence to support that point of view in things like out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences. The problem with these things is that they don't follow the scientific method. It's impossible to have a reproducible study of out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences. So all that can be done is a collection of anecdotes, anecdotal evidence, and things like that. However, people have done some, scientific studies of things like out-of-body experiences, and you can find those in the Holographic Universe, Michael Talbot's book, and it's very interesting. So, it's basically based on sort of psychological or experimental constructs. Take a number of people who have had them, ask them questions, ask their doctors questions, and come to conclusions based on their result, and rule out all of the sort of the noise or the extraneous circumstances that could explain them. And what you're left with is that OBEs occur.
Yes.
And near-death experiences are not explained by processes in the brain. And as many people that are out there, skeptics who say, that's fiction, I would just suggest that they have an open mind and look at things like, the past history of scientific short-sightedness